Hello and welcome! Today we are in the new Tier 9 French large cruiser, the Carnot. The ship was given to me by Wargaming. Initially I did not like her, but the more I played her, the more I started to like her. And the main reason why is because she is fast. She goes over 36 knots in a straight line with just the speed flag, and with the speed boost she goes over 43 knots. This allows you to reposition and be on the edges of the battle to flank the enemy, which I think is a lot of fun to do. To compare her to other large cruisers, she's kinda like a mix between an Alaska and an Azuma. A lot of stats she has are very similar to what the Alaska has, in terms of tankiness for example, in terms of AP penetration, but she does not have the improved AP pen angles that the Alaska does. Obviously she also does not have a radar, so in that sense she's much more similar to what the Azuma is like. But she's pretty effective at actually fighting ships. Now her damage output is actually slightly lower than Alaska's, and HE there in particular can be an issue, so I would not expect HE spam to go over very well on this ship. It'll be fine in a salvo or two, but you would mainly like to use AP. Now in one aspect she is better than the Alaska with her guns, and that is her shell velocity at long range is much better than the Alaska. The shells take time more akin to what Azuma has. So you're more likely to actually land long range shots, but obviously the dispersion is still effectively pretty bad. You can miss quite many shells in a salvo. Would I bring a Carnot instead of an Alaska into ranked? Probably not, because Alaska brings a lot of utility with radar. But the Carnot does have a place in random battles for sure, and if you don't have the Alaska, well in that case, I think she, so far at least, seems to be a pretty decent ship. Because being fast just allows you to go to the sides of the enemy and flank them, and if necessary you can run away or you can push your advantage, which is something that a lot of ships can't really do because they're not fast enough. Goodbye Z-23. For example, this destroyer, I would say most cruisers would be fast enough in a straight line to be able to chase this. However, would they have taken the risk to push over here? That's kinda questionable. But the Carnot is fast and tanky, so I was willing to take this risk. Of course, as I'm fighting Aerroon right now, I don't wish to get any closer. First, because she has torpedoes, and if I keep approaching her, she could launch torpedoes that could actually reach me as I'm getting closer and closer. Second, I'd really like to get out of the secondary range because they do start fires when they occasionally hit the target, like right now. And the Carnot is a large cruiser, which means large fires. So 60 seconds like battleships have. And I mean, I started a fire on the Aerroon with my secondaries too, but it seems I did actually stay a little too close. Right now I decided to change sides so that I can get behind the Aerroon, so that if she wants to use her front turrets, she has to show more sight to somebody. Either me or my teammates. Also, it significantly lowers the secondary effectiveness of the Aerroon. As you can see, those secondaries aren't basically firing, whereas mine are. Oh, well, I think she's pretty much gone now. Goodbye. Oh, and apparently our Z-44 detonated. Okay then. Anyway, right now I'm in a position that I would like to be in this kind of a ship. I'm fast and I would like to flank the enemy from the north. They won't expect much from that, and by this I don't mean go to where that Scharnhorst is, but engage the Scharnhorst. And maybe chase her off. And after that I would like to be in a position so that when the enemies are angling against the rest of my teammates, I will be on their side. So take a look at the minimap, you can see our Alsace in the A-cap. If the Alsace keeps pushing and goes roughly where our Friesland is right now, the enemies will point their nose roughly in her direction, because they wish to angle against her. So, in that kind of a situation, the position I am going to be in is effectively on their broadside, and that's exactly where I'd like to be. Because in that kind of a situation, I can deal damage to them, and maybe some of them will angle against me, and then the rest of my teammates will be able to get better shots. Okay, but I don't really wish to fight a Jean-Bart and a Scharnhorst at the same time. I am still a cruiser, not a battleship, although honestly, in quite a few situations it does feel a little like playing a battleship. However, 12-kilometer concealment means that you can still disengage when necessary, and obviously your speed boost will allow you to outrun any cruiser or battleship that you meet. The broadside of your ship isn't all that vulnerable, it's a lot like the Alaska. If I were to fire right now and the enemies fired in return, they would be unlikely to get citadels on me. It's possible, I believe, on some of the battleships, but unlikely. One thing that bothers me with the ship is the firing arcs when you are firing behind the ship. Look at how my ship is angled to be able to fire all of the turrets to hit the Scharnhorst behind me. I mean, look, even just this, what is this, 35 degrees is nowhere near enough to be able to shoot that Scharnhorst. I have to show a lot more sight than you might be used to in a lot of other ships. It's about 7 degrees worse than on the Alaska, which is a pretty significant change. Also, funny thing here, Scharnhorst is a battleship, or classified as in this match. She has 283mm caliber guns. The Carnot is a cruiser and has 305mm caliber guns. But I guess it is tier 7 versus tier 9. Still amusing, to me at least. Starting to deal quite a lot of damage to this Scharnhorst. Maybe I should actually try to finish her off. And it seems that our Missouri had about the same idea that I did. However, I think she is overextending, because she basically went between the two islands. It means that she's going to be a Wow. Anyway, as I wanted to say, the Missouri is going to be a prime target for the two destroyers, and I think because of that, she's going to go down. The reason why is that Missouri doesn't have room to maneuver where she is. She can basically only reverse and do whatever maneuver she can while reversing. Wow! Well, I suppose the Scharnhorst is showing a lot of broadside, and I'm gonna tell the Scharnhorst this. Hopefully he will listen in future games. But in this one, yeah, I think she showed way too much side. I don't think I'll be able to finish her off anytime soon, because she's probably gonna be behind the island. However, I'm gonna get the side of this Jean-Bart. I am gonna turn away though. I don't wish a direct confrontation, because I merely want to make the Jean-Bart react to me, and maybe react less to my other teammates. But I do need to get away, and hey, getting away puts me on the path of picking off the Scharnhorst and finishing her off. And there she is. She might be turning away, but she probably did torpedo, and she still went down. I'm going to have to turn in. This will show a lot more sight to the JB, but we should at least be able to avoid the torpedoes. And hey, because JB is showing us side, we get a much better shot on her. 7k. Secondary set of fire, we're gonna Damacon, because fires do deal a lot of damage. And hey, we're safe now. So now it's time to turn around and go through the gap between the two islands. Oh, come on, secondary set another fire. I suppose I did use damage control party a little too early. I should have eaten a little more of that fire damage and then used DCP. Also here you can see the bug where the ship stops turning even though the rudder shows is fully turned. It is quite annoying, but it only happens when you use chat, so just don't use chat. Also, if that Jamba keeps pushing, she will be flanking herself for me by just showing me side. That would be very nice, but sadly it appears that she is stopping. And she seems to be stopping just in time to stay behind the island for me. Yeah, I don't know if I can hit her. I mean, I can fire over that part of the island, but I'm not sure if I can actually hit her. Well, I could with a few shells, but that wasn't much damage. So the plan is to go between the two islands and then just get the broadside of the JB and finish her off. It is going to be a bit sketchy though, because my Hydro is going to run out and there is a smoked up Kitakaze right there. I just hope she has already used her torpedoes when I do that. I mean, destroyers generally do use their torpedoes pretty liberally, so there's a good chance that she won't have them available. Meanwhile, the Missouri actually did go down, but notice the Alsace that did not go through the gap between the two islands. She is just fine, and she will be able to flank the enemy when necessary. And this is why the chain of islands kind of creates a bit of a border between two teams, because going through can put you at quite a disadvantage. But here, because I'm on the side, I'm gonna be fine, and I think the Alsace did not expect me. Her turrets were not turned and she was completely broadside. And I'm not sure if she even gets to turn her turrets before I get a second salvo. This time I'm gonna wait a little bit with my damage control party. And goodbye. Now damage control party and swapping to HE, because we're gonna have to just spot the Kitakaze the old-fashioned way. Wait, why is she spotted? Did she leave smoke? Are you kidding me? Wow, this is super lucky. Okay, I mean, I'll take it. Oh, all 10 shells hit. Come on, secondaries. Come on. Yes, Kraken too. And it does appear that she did not have torpedoes available. I was trying to angle in a way where if she does launch torps, I could potentially avoid them, but if she had torps, chances are I would have eaten at least one of them. Okay, and now it's time to go into the side of the B-cap, and oh, a Harlem. And of course she starts to fire. Wait, planes? Planes? Okay, I need to turn. You see planes coming in like this? You turn. And just go sideways. Parachutes, huh? Yeah, that wasn't very effective, was it? It did start a fire though. But this is what damage control party is for. I think she's gonna show me side, so I swap to AP. Come on. Oh, this is looking good. I think that's goodbye. Or not. Okay. Hanustrashimi as well. I hope she didn't torp me. That would be very, very unfortunate. Luckily the Harlem does not have torpedoes, otherwise this would be a very foolish maneuver. The Carnot also does not have torpedoes. Also, I really hope the ship is actually pronounced Carnot rather than Carnot or something like that. Okay, I only have 8000 HP. Come on, can we finish the Hanustrashimi? Oh, come on, a fire. Luckily, I have damage control party in a bit. I am gonna try to body block myself on the corpse of the Harlem, because that will suddenly stop my ship. And hey, we did actually avoid torps with this. Is that a reversing Pommern? Huh. Interesting. Okay, anyway, we're gonna take the cap, and there's only 2 enemy ships left while we have 5. Alsace has decided to go through the gap, and she pretty much is the security of this game. In the sense that we, at least I, am in a pretty compromised position. If I suddenly got spotted somehow by the, I don't know, Pommern's maneuvering or something, I would be immediately dead. But the Alsace's position and her HP guarantees that we're gonna win. But Pommern kept reversing instead, and she is completely broadside, so of course we're gonna take our AP salvo. and then we're gonna hide behind the island. But I suppose that was unnecessary. Wow. This game was unexpected. 180k damage, 8 ships sunk, 8. Wow. Damn, I haven't had a game this good in a long time. Confederate, Dreadnought, Kraken, High Caliber, and a close quarters expert in a large cruiser. This game was extremely good, and it's part of the reason why I started to like the Carnot as much as I do. 3012 base XP. Look at that potential damage taken. 2.4 million. This is some truly battleship level, and hey, with 7 fires we only took 17,000 fire damage. Most of the damage we took was actually still AP. I did find a lot of destroyers this match. The Z-23, Taketakaza, and the Nustrashimi. In fact, they only had 3 destroyers, and I sank all 3 of them. So, let's take a look at the Carnot in port. And I do hope it's pronounced Carnot or some variation of that rather than Carnot, because my instincts tell me that it should be Carnot. But with French, you kinda never know. I really like the look of the ship though. I really like this camo, particularly the part, this part right here, where it looks like the ship goes into itself. At least the first time I saw it, that's exactly what this section looked like to me. And I think it's really cool. I like this camo a lot. Anyway, let's take a look at the armor scheme of the ship. So first, it's a bit sad that the bow and stern are 25mm, so Bismarck guns will be able to overmatch it, but I mean, we can deal with that. The side armor plate is 30mm, the deck armor is 36mm. This won't stop a light cruiser, a tier 8 plus light cruiser with IFHE to pen it. However, it will stop heavy cruiser HE from penning it, which is, I suppose, pretty useful. Superstructure is obviously 16mm. Now the Citadel is pretty well protected on the ship. This is one of the tankier cruisers in the game. I mean, first of all, just look at this, right? The Citadel basically sits on the waterline. As the ship bobs up and down, it goes up, above and below the waterline, which means it's gonna be difficult to hit. It's like shooting an Iowa. And then you also have the armor plates, which are fairly thick on this ship. I mean, look at this, right? That's a 180mm armor plate right there that you have to go through. That you have no way around it. And then after the 180mm, you have basically the 20mm turtleback, which isn't going to be a big deal against the battleships, I suppose. But against cruisers, this can be effectively a deal breaker if the angle is wrong. But this is still additional armor. And behind that, you have a 100mm Citadel armor plate too. So 180, then 20, and then 100. This basically adds up to shooting an Iowa, or something very similar. Maybe slightly worse, maybe slightly better. I'm not actually certain which way the armor penetration mechanics go, but it'll be something comparable. So of course a battleship, when you show broadside to a battleship, they can Citadel you, but they're not likely to because of the where the Citadel sits. Like, it sits low enough in the water that chances are shells will simply miss. But the Citadel deck is 25, which might end up being a little bit of a problem. But overall though, I find that she's about as tanky as Alaska. So don't show obvious broadsides to battleships, but other than that, she can definitely take a beating. Anyway, captain skills that I used these skills. I don't think they're actually the best ones, but this is just what I used. I started with Grease the Gears, Priority Target, Adrenaline Rush, Concealment Expert, and... Sorry, I meant Superintendent, Concealment Expert, and then Adrenaline Rush. These are the basic 13 points that I basically use on every cruiser, or honestly anything with a heal. Because I think these are the main skills that you would like. Now, after that, on this ship I went for Top Grade Gunner, Heavy AP Shells, and Gun Feeder. I really like Gun Feeder on this ship, and I think Grease the Gears isn't as important, so you might want to swap these two out. Because with Grease the Gears and the other stuff, you have 30-second turret traverse time, which is more than enough because you have a 22-second reload. However, the skill I would actually like to get is outnumbered, because when this is effective it increases your speed further. So your top speed wouldn't be 43 knots, it would actually be something like 46 knots, and it also improves your dispersion, which is something you do lack, unlike most other cruisers. Of course, this would mean dropping heavy AP shells so your AP does less damage, and then either grease the gears or gun feeder. I think that kind of a build is probably going to end up being better in the long term, because you do want to flank and this skill is perfect for that. Upgrades. It's basically what you would expect. Reload, as you don't really need more range. Concealment, of course. Then damage control, because you're a large cruiser, you get large fires. Then here I use aiming systems. I suppose if you really feel like you need gun feed or grease the gears, then instead of aiming systems you could take main battery modification too, but I don't really recommend it. In the second slot, actually in the match, I used hydro here, which was a mistake. I should have been using engine boost, because with this engine boost lasts for almost 4 minutes, without it it's like 3 minutes. And then main arms modification 1. Also, you can instead of hydro take defensive fire, of course, if you would like, and instead of engine boost you could pick a plane, but I don't recommend taking a plane. But defensive fire is something you could consider, because the anti-air on this ship is comparable to the Alaska's, which is actually pretty good AA already. So it is something you could consider buffing further if you would like to. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I hope I'll see you guys next time.